telling all these suckers where they at, man. Seeing through your cap, cause my vision is a CAT scan. Trying to get up in the game like I'm Pac-Man, so I'm blacking out on the track like I'm Batman.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Kase Podcast. It's your boy Kase, the realest basketball fan alive, and I'm live from Las Vegas, Nevada, West Side. Thank you for tuning in. This is season 3, episode 7, and I'm here with the Tank Master himself. What's going on, man? How's the weather out there in Seattle?
It's been weirdly sunny. I'm excited to be on, and just glad to be here.
All right, bet, man. You know, we've been running these leagues. Like, we've been in a league together for what, like 3 years now or so? Something like that. So, or is it just 2 seasons and the bubble or something like that?
This one started like right before, this is 2019, I think. So
yeah, 2019. So we're entering the 4th season with this, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, pretty much you've been tanking, you know, the whole time, pretty much. And, you know, I've been watching your draft and just your draft analysis. So it seems like you have a pretty good head around, you know, prospects. So I wanted to invite you here to talk about, you know, the NBA lottery that just happened 2 days ago, talk about some prospects. You know, we even did our own kind of mock of the lottery and whatnot, to see some potential landing spots and fits. And we're just going to talk overall tanking and fantasy. So you ready to talk about all that?
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of nice to be able to talk about this since, my startup draft was so bad. I've been tanking ever since.
Moving on. Let's jump right into the topics here. So the first one, we're just going to react to the lottery. And pretty much from the results that we saw, it was a pretty interesting shuffle. I would say nothing dramatic happened, but the main movers here was OKC, you know, jumping into, they got the second pick.
Yeah.
And the Kings, they jumped from what, 7th to 4th or something like that? Or were they?
Yeah, it was like 7 to 4. And then
yeah, so they're the only people that kind of jumped, the only team that kind of made a jump that day. And then, you know, Pistons kind of lost value from falling out of that the top 3 into the 5th pick. So, I mean, do you have any, I guess, reactions to, like, just those teams we mentioned, you know, Thunder kind of going up and, you know, Kings going up a little bit?
No, there's a few interesting things with that, I think. The Thunder definitely are, like, big winners, I think, because jumping into the top 3 means that they get a chance at a higher upside franchise cornerstone to pair with SGA. So that, I think, was a big win for them. Kings jumping up was big, but I fully expect them to completely blow it when they make the pick.
Absolutely.
And then, I think the Pistons they lost a little bit, dropping from 3 to 5, but I think they can still get a good player at 5 to kind of run with Cade. I think they just need to be better about their roster construction, since they can't get like as high of an upside guy at 5 as they could top 3. But
yeah, definitely. And the thing with these, you know, changes in whatever, you know, draft positions, like what matters is the tiers, right? So it based on this draft, you know, there's a clear top 3 to 4 that's in that first tier, and then you just have a bunch of forwards that's like wings and forwards like right under them. So I think Pistons falling out of the top 4 is a huge deal just based on the tiers. But like you said, there's still they're going to get the best wing available right there at 5. And like you said, you know, Kings could blow it, so they might not even pick someone in that top tier. and you know, who knows, you know, someone from that top tier falls to the Pistons. So.
Yeah, no, I get that. I was joking that they draft Nikola Jovic at 4 because of his name.
Yeah, that'll be funny. And then Thunder, I think it's good to see them actually have some luck this year after last year. They didn't really have good luck. The ball bounced their way, you know, with the stranglehold they had on my Rockets. But thankfully, we didn't give up those picks. So it's good to see them kind of jump us and kind of get that little revenge. So, you know, get your guy and we'll get the guy left over. You feel me? So
that. And the top 3 is good, so Rockets will get someone nice at 3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I cared about was staying in the top 3. Because, you know, if you fall to 4, you're at risk of drafting Jaden Ivey there at 4. And I didn't want another guard. I mean, he's going to be a great player. I think so. But, yeah, I just didn't like the fit on the Rockets. But I guess speaking of Rockets, I thought it was interesting seeing that they had the worst record
Yeah.
and then them dropping to the third spot. So I mean, conceptually, I'm kind of, what would I say, torn apart to say whether that's a drop or not, because one, based on the way we do the lottery, all the three bottom teams have that 14% chance of getting the first one. So just because you have the first record and then you drop down to the worst record and you drop down to the third spot, I mean, I don't know if that is a drop. I mean, it depends on how you look at it, but that's kind of something that I'm torn on. An interesting perspective to look at. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, I guess it's kind of just, if you treat the top three picks as even value, it's not really a drop. And I guess in this draft, it doesn't feel like a huge loss in value to fall from 1 to 3, because I think there is a good argument for any of the top three guys to go number 1. But I mean, it would be nice to have your pick of the 3 instead of like having to take the leftover guy. So kind of cuts both ways, but on value, not so bad. Maybe on like flexibility, it's less good.
Yeah, definitely. And that was a point I was going to touch on, is based on the draft tiers this year, dropping from 1 to 3, probably isn't much of a drop. Like you said, you're just going to get the leftover guy who probably doesn't fit what you're trying to do. So yeah. So yeah, I guess let's take, I guess, a final lottery take here, and just based on how the balls, kind of dropped, and just, we've been doing these new lottery odds for a few years now, I would say. And I would say, based on these odds, would you say that they work better or worse than the original? Like, should we go back? Any suggestions going forward, or should we keep it the way it is right now? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I kind of like the way the new odds have worked, because I think it kind of increases parity at that bottom tier. So for a rebuilding team, I guess it's their luck, or I guess it's a little more luck based, which I think kind of makes sense with the way the NBA is structured. So that's been pretty good. Maybe you can kind of tweak the odds a little bit, but I wouldn't try to change it too much. As far as like using the odds for fantasy, I mean, selfishly, I'll say I was the big winner this year, having both the Thunder and Kings picks.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I mean, yeah, I think in a general sense, it's good because it allows those like mid-tier bad teams to have a better shot, which a lot of those teams just kind of stay stuck in there forever. So to get any of those teams a franchise-changing star is a big deal.
Yeah, that is true. That is true, because at the end of the day, we should really look at it like all the bottom, let's say 4 to 5 teams in each conference deserve a fair shot at getting a top player, because they're almost all just as bad.
Yeah.
The only difference is one team is tanking better than the other, honestly. So
tanking takes skill.
Exactly. Yeah, tanking takes, and that's why you're on here. We're gonna get to that. With the tank master himself. So, I mean, I guess that's a wrap on just the lottery in general, just the concept of the lottery, and just I guess a quick recap, right? So, moving on, what we did was we did a lottery mock. So pretty much we listed all the teams in the lottery, and then I listed all the players that I think the teams were going to pick, and then Ranger did the same. So first off, we're just going to run through each pick, and I guess I'll give my logic behind my pick, and you give your logic behind your pick and how it fits. Yeah. So first pick, Magic. We both went with Chet Holmgren. I mean, I think they just go with the best player available, best fit available. They have a lot of let's say skillful, like power type of forwards, like Wendell Carter Jr. And like their front court is pretty crowded, but they don't have a guy quite like Chet Holmgren. So
yeah,
that's a perfect guy to kind of complement all the forwards they have going on. If you look at, I think Jabari Smith, I've seen him mocked here a couple of times, but I think with Jonathan Isaac returning, that might be a little redundant. But we'll see. But how do you have Chet as well as your Magic pick? So. How do you see that?
I think for me, what I was seeing here is they were running a lot of like 2 center lineups with Bamba and Wendell Carter this year. And I think Chet is like if Bamba were like more skilled, more refined player with better positioning
Mhm.
and like a better basketball IQ. So I get a feeling they let Bamba walk and just replace him with Chet pretty much and just go the two
Mhm.
bigs in their lineup. And I think with Isaac's injury history, they needed a rim protector because Carter's okay there. He's like a good defender, but he's not like a game changer in the way that Chet would be as a shot blocker. So it's kind of a pretty
Absolutely.
natural fit. And then I guess in like 5 to 8 years, he'll probably end up on the Lakers like every other center at the Magic, take it number one.
Yeah. No, definitely. Just comparing Shet to like Jabari Smith because they're both kind of known for their defense. It's pretty interesting to see. I almost see Shet almost like he's so skilled as a shot blocker that he could almost be like a Gobert with a jump shot.
Yeah, he's more defensive anchor, which is I think
Hmm.
what the Magic need. Whereas Smith is more like a complementary, like switchable, high end like wing forward defender.
Yeah, Jabari's going this high because he was the best shooter in
Yeah,
college, arguably, and the fact just being a two-way wing. But this is just what we're used to seeing guys develop into all stars eventually. So he looks the most like an all star. So I mean, let's move on to the next pick with OKC. And speaking of Jabari, you went with Jabari. So
yeah,
you want to explain your pick with there?
yeah. I think with Jabari, the thing I see with him for the Thunder is that they are pretty heavy on like ball dominant guys, but they don't really have much in the way of shooting on their roster right now.
Hmm.
And they have like some guys who are effective. I mean, Jeremiah Robinson Earl is like a depth piece is pretty good as a big, but I mean, Giddy is not a great shooter yet. That'll take some time, and he's a very ball dominant guy. SGA is another guy where he's a good scorer, pretty good shooter, but again, better on ball than off ball.
Hmm.
And Smith is one of those guys where I think he can operate off ball and complements their core super well. So I think between like Jabari and Banchero, there's kind of a like the skill sets kind of fit differently. And I can see Paolo going second as well, but I think Jabari's a cleaner fit with that roster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is where my mock got interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
the fact OKC got that second pick, I'm shocking the world a little bit. I think they might go with Jaden Ivey,
Mm.
just based on OKC's approach as one, they tend to have their own way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
So that they like to draft, they'll draft someone and almost show the world like, haha, see, I was right about this,
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jaden Ivey, honestly, if you compare these guys, like I know Jabari, Paolo, and Chet are the top three tier, but throughout the draft process, Jaden Ivey has kind of creeped within that tier on and off. So,
Yeah.
and if you ask me, out of all four of those guys, who has the clearest path to being a superstar, I think it is Jaden Ivey. Just being a guard that handles the ball. Whereas, Shet, Jabari, and Powell, they kind of have to rely on the guard to kind of get them good looks. And, so just, and I already know some OKC fans won't like this because, they have Josh Giddey and Shea Gilgeous. But, I mean, you don't know the plans of the future, with all these assets you have on OKC. You don't know who's going to be on this roster. So I just think you grab the guy that you think you can develop into being the best player out of this group. I think they might be able to do it with Jaden Ivey. I mean, looking at what they did with Westbrook in the past.
No, I can see that. He's a great athlete, and I think there's a lot of upside there. But yeah, I think that definitely would be a surprising pick if it happened. So
Yeah, I know. I know Joy's
Let's
going
see
to
how
kill
it
me.
goes.
Joy's going to kill me for taking Jaden Ivey.
I don't hate it, but I think it's one of those like murky fits where maybe arguably on talent he could match everyone else, but yeah, on fit I wouldn't expect it.
Yeah,
But could
okay.
it happen? Sure.
Definitely. So, I guess the last point I wanted to make with that pick was just Shea and Josh Giddey. I don't know if you want one to be like your main. I guess they're trying to mold Giddey into being like the lead ball handler. But until we see that, you might want someone that's more switchy to kind of initiate the offense. But we'll see. Next pick, I know with who I went here, Rockets. I went with Jabari Smith. I just feel like he's just a perfect guy that because the Rockets are missing a small forward, honestly, small forward, defensive power forward kind of. So I don't know how much longer Wood's part of this development. So they have Garuba. I think Garuba and Jabari kind of fighting for that. I mean, they won't fight for the starting spot. It's going to be Jabari's for the most part. But just having a starter and then having Garuba as a backup defensive guy. KPJ, Jalen Green, and Şengün, the offense is just going to go through them. So to have a sharpshooter Jabari is just a perfect fit, and, to fill in the defense. So and then you went with Rockets Banchero. So
Yeah, so I kind of like Paolo a lot as a prospect. I think the way I see him as a prospect is he has a lot of different ways where he can pan out and be a good NBA player because he has a really balanced profile and aside from his shot not being like super great, there aren't really any holes in his like game at all.
Mhm.
So I feel like maybe he doesn't fit super well on the Rockets because I think he's better on ball than off ball, but
Mhm.
I do think he fills a role for the Rockets as like a big wing who can play small ball five. So if they think that he can initiate an offense well, because I do consider him a plus initiator for the position, or as like even as like a good dribble handoff threat, like
Mhm.
I could see him fitting well with those guards because
Yeah.
he can space the floor, he can pass, can roll, can score inside.
Yeah.
There's the versatility is kind of why I think that makes sense there.
Definitely. I think the way the draft is set up, Rockets definitely have the highest chance of drafting Banchero. And I mean, the reason I don't really like that fit is because just looking at Banchero, KPJ, and Şengün in the same lineup, I'm like, okay, Jalen Green's the only real sharp shooter, if you know what I mean. KPJ, Paolo, and Şengün are just skilled all around. So they might be stepping on each other's toes, or they might have a hard time finding a specific role for each other. But hey, watching what the Warriors did, you want guys that can do multiple things and then kind of figure it out. It's about drawing a system that makes it work. Get the talent, make the system work. So.
And I mean, I think Paolo's a good connector who can kind of function a bunch of different roles. So I think it could work, but like the big thing that would impact his ceiling on the Rockets would be how far his jump shot goes. So
definitely. Okay, so moving on. Let's move on to the Kings, and you went with Shaedon Sharpe.
Yep. So I feel like that's a very Kings pick. I think the big thing is massive upside, but we have no idea like what his stock would have looked like if he played this year.
Yeah, we call him the mystery box of this draft.
I think the downside there is pretty huge, but I don't know. The Kings seem to always kind of do this where they pick a guy who's kind of raw and unproven, and then it works sometimes, and we'll see. And their best recent pick, I think, was Halliburton, but he was a very different profile. So I just expect them to surprise.
but you're right, though, because Halliburton was kind of like raw prospect. He could do all these different things. He was almost similar to Killian Hayes in a way, to where they're both raw that could do all these multiple things. And Killian just didn't take off. But you see what happened to Halliburton getting traded for Sabonis. You feel me?
I will never get that trade. But I think Halliburton's kind of a weird pick by the Kings relative to their other recent ones because they seem to usually draft like guys who have athletic tools but have kind of room to go on the mental processing side. Mm-hmm. And Halliburton's someone who was like one of the highest level processors I've seen like coming into the league. So it's a very it's just a very different like pick that ended up working out. So I don't get why they traded him, but basically I think Sharpe has a ways to go on the processing and like basketball IQ side of things just because he hasn't played at a high level as much. But I mean, the upside's there. I just don't believe in them to develop.
Yeah, definitely. And with the Kings, for me, I went with Paolo Banchero, and when I made this pick, I actually laughed because I'm like, it reminded me of them picking Bagley. the Duke big man that can do all these multiple things. I'm like, you don't want to go through that again, Kings. So that kind of made me laugh. But I mean, he's the best player available just based on the way my draft was going. So Um,
Yeah.
so like you said, in the beginning, you said Kings are just gonna blow it. It'll be funny if they end up with Van Carroll because I feel like that's the place he does not want to be, just based off that history. So
I think they'd waste his talent. So it's the Kings. I expect them to do that.
yeah, and then but a pick like Shaden Sharp would be nice, I think, because that's a guy that could probably just pop off. He's just too good, and he's on the Kings. You know what I'm saying? Uh, So yeah, moving on. My next pick, Detroit Pistons. This is where I had Shaden Sharp going. Once again, best player available, best upside. Piston, you have to shoot for the upside here. Falling out of the top three. So, um, I guess my analysis of Shaden Sharp is, like I said with Jabari Smith, how he looks the most like a potential All Star or whatever,
Yeah.
just based on what we're used to seeing coming through this game of wings. And Shaden Sharp kind of fits that profile as well. But the difference is that Shaden Sharp actually has shown the ability to dribble and, drive to the bucket, the things that we questioned Jabari Smith about. So, Shaden Sharp, the difference between Shaden Sharp is Jabari's a sharpshooter that's lacking some of the guard skills. Shaden Sharp is the guy with the guard skills that's lacking some of the shooting. So,
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference between the two, and the reason Shaden is going behind Jabari is because he didn't play. That's it, honestly.
Yeah.
So, and you went with Keegan Murray going to Detroit Pistons. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll kind of just talk about him real quick. I think with Murray on the Pistons, there's a couple things, which is I think they may move Jeremy Grant, which kind of would necessitate another wing. And he just kind of seems to fit pretty well with Bay as well on the wing. So he's kind of like a big two-way player who has like developed a lot on offense. And I think the other part with him is that he has improved as a ball handler and an on-ball guy. So I think he's a flexible like player that fits in pretty much any system. So
Definitely.
yeah,
And I see that the same way because I have him here going to the Pacers,
oh yeah,
which is the next pick at pick 6. And I mean, me personally, I feel I see it the same way. He could fit on any squad. He's just the type of player that's multi-skilled and high IQ, right?
Yeah.
But my issue is he has to land on the right team to develop right. Because
yeah,
I guess the way he was scoring in college. I mean, he kind of projected as a 3-level scorer, but
yeah.
the way he was scoring in college, he was using a lot of post ups and he was relying a lot on his physical strength, which people might question when he comes into the league when you start playing with the big boys. So
Yeah.
I think he would definitely, just like every other draft pick, the swing skill here is the 3-point shot. If he could develop the 3-point shot, and I mean he'll be playing on the floor a lot and early. So
Yeah.
I have him going to the Pacers. I think that'll be a great fit and just a great. I just love the way the Pacers play. Just the way that whole organization is run. Even though they don't really win much, but they have like a blue collar, what is it? Almost like that Philly vibe, but almost, but the underdog, more of an underdog than Philly. You feel me?
Yeah.
So,
And the roster does look pretty good coming into this year if they can stay healthy. I think they're probably, the best team picking in the top 6 by a pretty wide margin.
absolutely,
So,
I agree.
Because I had them taking Ivy, which is a little bit of a weird pick because I don't think he fits with Halliburton and Brogdon super well. Just because
That's
they're all
interesting to see him fall far. So, like, can you comment on that as well?
I mean, yeah, I think it's really just I don't really see a need for Ivy on the Pistons, and I think on the Kings he'd be a horrific fit, and I don't think he can take over the top 3. So he just kind of falls to 6, but a lot of it is all those top teams have ball dominant guys that they are developing or like that are locked in on their roster. And yeah, the Pacers kind of like some of that, but like I think Brogdon's a guy who, I mean, I expect he can get traded easily on his contract. I think he's a good deal that can be easily moved, and he has injury issues. Halliburton, I think, may just stay the lead guard, but I mean, he's played the 2 before, and he has a lot of positional flexibility and has been great in a less ball dominant role. So, like, I think you can kind of get away with playing like 2 guards, especially if like one of them is Halliburton. So yeah, I think that one's more just a fit pick than or like a lack of fit with the top 5 picks.
Yeah, and I don't blame you at all because some people might look at the mock and be like, "Oh, Ivy is falling to number 6. Like that's wild. He's a top 3 or 4 pick." But it's like, I mean, when you do these mocks, you can see how these players easily slide in drafts. It's just based on the team making a pick that wants to fit on their team, and sometimes when you're ranking guys, you're just ranking them, and at the end of the day, they have to fit on teams. It's like a puzzle, So and you might just be that lost puzzle piece that just slips all the way down, That's how you get steals. That's how you get like Michael Porter Jr. going 15 and Devin Booker going like that late, So, moving on. We mentioned Pacers. Yeah, I took Keegan Murray. You took Jaden Ivey. So the next pick at pick 7 is the Portland Trailblazers, and we both went with Benedict Mathurin. So I'll let you go first on your analysis of this pick.
I mean, I think with Mathurin, he's a young, high upside wing with like pretty good size who can kind of play on both ends. And I think he has to develop his defensive awareness, but his physical tools kind of project super well to the NBA level.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has some like functional passing, which he's 19, and he had a good assist to turnover ratio. So maybe there's like some room for that to develop. Like, I don't know, the Blazers are kind of in a tough spot, so they got to go upside, and I think his upside's probably the highest in this range.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing with what's interesting with Benedict Mathurin is, this draft process is funny because he kind of started off around this range when the season started, but then he started to slip just based on other prospects kind of popping up, but he just went off in the second half, and that kind of sustained his value back up to a point where we believe he's going to be like a top 7, 8, 9 pick, despite some other guys rising in the draft. So yeah, I'm with you, Blazers. At this pick, you just have to shoot for upside. Benedict Mathurin, same thing with Shaedon Sharpe and Jabari Smith. He has the physicality and the profile that we see from these wing stars that come through the league. So lots of wings in this draft. After that top tier. Yeah. So next, we go to the Pelicans, and I have them taking Ochai Agbaji. So, and this one, I just feel like his, early on, I had him more later in the teens.
Yeah.
In this, as far as just my rankings, but just after this, I know how scouts and how the NBA reacts to stuff. So after his run to the championship and him being winning the MVP and all that, so I think a team like Pelicans seems like a team that will kind of bite on that. So Ochai Agbaji, I think he will help space the floor for Zion. They already have Trey Murphy and Herbert Jones from last draft that are kind of helping space, and Ochai Agbaji is he kind of fits the same. I would say, what would I say? Like he fits the same skill set, but not the same body type, right?
Yeah.
So he's just another one you could throw out there, just off the bench when guys are injured. He might start here and there. So yeah. And then you have them taking Dyson Daniels.
Yeah, so I think Daniels is another interesting prospect where he had a lot of kind of later development, but I think he fits well with this team because he's one of those guys who is I'd say if he ever hits his potential, he has like kind of the type of profile you see out of a good ceiling raiser for a team, where like maybe he's not like a guy that can raise the floor of a team's performance, but he might be someone who is a key piece on a title team because he kind of does all those like little things right. And I think he fits well with kind of like McCollum in the backcourt. I think Kira Lewis getting hurt definitely means they have a need there, and they got Devontae Graham, right? I don't think he really has much of a role at this point. So if they're kind of running like a couple guards, if they think CJ can run the point, then he's fine there. But I think he also fits well with like Ingram and with Herb Jones and with Trey Murphy and those guys. So he's kind of like someone who I think is kind of a chameleon and can kind of fit on any kind of roster, which is the other piece.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you as well. I guess Dyson Daniels, I could see him, the way Alvarado kind of came in
Yeah.
and just stepped into that, right? I could see Daniels would be like an Alvarado, but with more upside on offense. And did he grow? Like, because he started like at 6'6" this year. Now he's like 6'8" or something.
He's like 6'7" or something. I think he started at like 6'4". So the things that will hold him back are his handle's not that great, and his scoring is raw. But like, I don't know, the guy like has a good feel for the game, so I wouldn't bet against him necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, I guess speaking of Dyson Daniels, the next pick that I have here is, let me pull up. I don't even have my player comps up.
Get into the Spurs, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I have Spurs taking Dyson Daniels actually in the next pick, and I just think this is just such a Spurs pick. I would love for him to land here because I think they will develop him the best. Honestly, especially a prospect like him that has a lot of upside. Because think about this, right? His skill set is kind of similar to Derek White and DeJounte Murray. And and those guys were kind of later in the draft. So if they
I was going to say the comp I've seen of him was like a combo of Brogdon and Murray, and that's an interesting one. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, those comps just came to me just when I picked him on the Spurs. So I kind of came with that one on the fly. But in my notes here, I do have that comparison. In fact, in my notes here, my comp for Dyson Daniels was Derek Hart White. So Derek White and Josh Hart, kind of.
Yeah, I see that. And yeah, I think he could do a lot of different things on the court, which, like, he's kind of a Swiss Army knife, and that's kind of a good spot for those types of players to land in San Antonio. So makes sense.
And we have to consider that we're talking fantasy, and this is a guy that's like a Patrick Beverly, fill the stat sheets, sneaky value type of guy. So. Yeah, I know guys are going to be all over Dyson Daniels. I already see it. And then for you, the Spurs, you have them going on Jalen Duran.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like with them, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep Pirtle past this year because I think he's entering his contract year. And they do need good rim protection. And Duran is probably, outside of Chet, probably the best like vertically dominating big in the draft. So I kind of see him as like a good pick and roll partner for Murray, someone who can kind of, anchor the defense, and I think they need work there. So, I mean, hopefully he can kind of develop on that and then clean up like mistakes by the guards and wings.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was first doing this mock, I did have Duran there initially, but I started to think about it and I realized how much they like Jakob Poeltl. And although on the surface he seems like that's not a center that fits, when you look deeper, that's the center that fits. Like he's like right up there with Gobert as far as best defensive centers in the league, and that's something Spurs will cherish. So
more if they can't keep. I think they might believe they can't keep him, which is why it would make sense.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense. And then I guess moving on to my comp for Jalen Duran was I think he would fall somewhere between Emeka Okafor or like Dwight Howard, kind of somewhere in that range.
I can see like a Wendell Carter maybe, like as like a median outcome.
So you think he's a bit more skilled than I'm looking at it then?
I think Carter also came in a little raw, but like I think Duran is someone who like has that kind of like physical profile at least.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the reason I use like the Okafor and Dwight because I just see him as a guy that's just going to be block, catch the ball, dunk. He's just going to use his power. So
yeah, I think there's like some skill that can be unlocked at some point because of his. I mean, some of it's athleticism, but he does seem to have good passing instincts, which I think is like a little bit more like rare for a guy like that in that archetype.
Okay. So moving on to the next pick, Washington Wizards. Do you have them taking Jeremy Sohan?
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, honestly, I think the Wizards roster just doesn't make sense. But if you're going BPA, I think his versatility makes him the most interesting upside play. And I don't know. I think Rui is probably not going to be an impact guy long term, so
Hmm.
I don't think he really fits into the long term plans. Kuzma's on a shorter deal now, and he's fine, but he also kind of has some positional versatility. So you just kind of want to get someone that can kind of like fit all along that front line, which is kind of
Hmm.
the biggest thing here.
Okay, okay, makes sense. Me personally, I feel like with the Wizards here, I went with Johnny Davis
Yeah,
because although Sohan makes sense as far as if they want to, I guess, try to make the playoffs next season, that's the kind of guy that could kind of give you some defensive intensity and just make winning plays.
yeah,
But I think just where they're at, they just have to shoot for upside here. And I think if you got Johnny Davis on the board and you're the Wizards, you just take it. I know the Rui Hachimura didn't work for you, and this might be a similar profile, but when we were talking Keegan Murray, Benedict Mathurin, like Shaden Sharp, those guys going like Johnny Davis could have went up there too. So
yeah.
so
And I
that
think
go ahead.
I had Davis going next to the Knicks in this one, so
Oh
that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, you talk about that. Knicks taking Johnny Davis.
Yeah, he just seems like such a Thibs pick. That's honestly most of it. Like the guy that he reminds me of a little bit also is on the Knicks is Quentin Grimes, as far as like college
Mm.
profile. And like Grimes is definitely like a Thibs guy who got on the floor last year and
Hmm.
made an impact. They're crowded on the wing, so maybe the positional fit's weird, but I mean Davis is someone who I think can like be a really solid two-way guy who can kind of like how would I describe it? I'd say connect like all the finishers on the Knicks together on the offensive end because the Knicks have like a lot of finishers and like very few like creators who like
Hmm.
create well for others.
Yeah.
I can kind of see him being like someone who kind of does that a little bit on the offensive and defensive end, like just
Okay.
is like
Okay.
wing
Because
deep. Yeah,
I mean, me personally, I guess I see more of like a Tobias Harris type in Johnny Davis
mm,
almost, but I mean, it makes sense with you. I mean, because you're talking more about the defensive end, and that's I guess not necessarily what Tobias stands on. His defense is okay, but he doesn't
he's
stand on
okay
that.
defender. Yeah, Davis
Yeah.
is a good defender. Like he's a very like high energy, high motor guy who I think can like make plays based off effort. So like the Knicks need more of that, and their wing
Hmm.
defense is pretty bad, honestly. So
Okay. 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 Cool. Cool. So for me, I had the Knicks taking Ty Washington here, and this is a guy that was he was potentially top 7 to top 10 pick, early on in this process. But after a disappointing season in Kentucky, he started to drop. But I don't know. I saw a lot of flashes that I liked. You know,
yeah,
just out of Ty Washington, I think he has potential to be like a lead guard. Maybe not as good as Halliburton, but I mean, I see some people comp him to him, but
yeah,
uh, let me see my comp. My comp, yeah, yeah. So I guess my comp, I did sprinkle a little Halliburton there, but I think he has more of a scorer's mentality than Halliburton
yeah.
does. So he's probably more of a little Jordan Clarkson sprinkled in there. So like it's like Jordan Clarkson in the brain. you know, but
A little
but
more
yeah,
60 energy. Yeah,
I know the Knicks like quickly, and he
yeah,
might start initially, but I think Ty Washington has way more upside to kind of eventually take that lead guard role. And
yeah,
yeah, so and he has a dope name. I mean, the Knicks would love that Ty.
yeah.
So moving on to OKC, we both went with AJ Griffin. So I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one is just Griffin was a highly regarded prospect. I think he fits the physical profile of a modern NBA wing perfectly, and he's extremely high upside. I think the big thing is watching him play. He's a little stiff, but you don't usually find guys who can shoot this well this late in the draft. So you got to take the talent and the jump shooting here.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. You know how earlier I said Jabari Smith might be the best shooter in college. Like AJ Griffin had he kind of had that badge over his head to a degree. Like he was in the competition, I
Yeah,
would say.
he can bomb for sure. So like definitely a good fit with I think the rest of that core since they need spacing. So
Yeah, and he has a lot of, and that's the thing. Like you know how I had them taking Jaden Ivey earlier. I think AJ Griffin is another great pick here as far as a guy with high upside. Great athleticism. He
yeah,
just has all the elements it takes to be a star.
yep.
So I guess my comp for AJ Griffin is almost like a OG Anunoby kind of, but maybe with not as much defense.
Yeah, I
You know,
see that.
so so but yeah, I guess moving on, Hornets. This is where I finally have Jalen Duran going, and I think that would be like a perfect fit. Even though I know the rumors of them going for Gobert, if they miss on Gobert and land Jalen Duran this late in the draft, that's a major win for them.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So getting LaMelo Ball, that pick and roll partner, will be gold for him. So that's what I have
Yeah,
going to Charlotte here at 13. Who do you have? I know you have Ochai Abachi going to Charlotte here. And it's funny, I've seen him mocked here a lot. I've seen him mocked in Charlotte a lot. So go ahead, you talk about that.
yeah. I mean, I think the big thing there is I think Baji's a two-way player, good on defense. He's a winner. I think he fits. And again, their wing defense was brutal this year. Like their games were just massive shootouts, so they need someone who can get stops on the wing. And they do have a hole at center, but we've kind of seen this in the playoffs too with like the Jazz, where like their perimeter defense is garbage, and then Gobert like gets pummeled at the rim even with his ability. So, or
Okay.
just teams shoot all over the Jazz, and it doesn't really matter because Gobert can't like literally
Okay.
carry the entire defense. So like they need to kind of like shore up the defense like at all levels, and he's a good fit there. With I think the other bigs being a bit of a step down in talent, or if
Okay.
all the bigs from at this point being a step down in talent.
Okay. And I mean, for me, how I see Ochai Abaji is like he's a typical two-way wing that can shoot. It's almost like, to me, if you put Gerald Green and Danny Green in one player, just mush them into one, you'll get like his skill set almost.
And that's
You know?
not a bad fit with Lamelo because like Lamelo's gonna like find his shooters if they're there. So
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, the thing about these type of players, they fit on any team.
yeah, exactly.
As you saw with the Martins this season, how they started to take off. Like they're more of the low end of the 3-and-D guys. But if you could kind of figure that role out to some degree, hey man, there's a spot for you in the league any day.
Yeah.
So moving on, we got this is the last pick we're doing of today. So this is the Cavaliers, and then you have them taking Tari Eason.
Yeah. So I think Easton's kind of someone who I'd say is in a similar-ish mold to like Keegan Murray a little bit, where he has some on-ball potential, but I think the big thing is just they need perimeter defense. They need big wings. He kind of just slots in perfectly. I think there's I guess yeah, he should be a good pure 3-and-D guy. We'll see if he kind of develops like the connecting ability that like allows him to elevate his game. But for the
Mhm.
Cavs, that's a good fit, like that late in the lotto.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And me, I had them taking either Tyree Easton as well or Jeremy Sohan. I just think with where the Cavs were, their disappointment in the play-in tournament, they could
Yeah.
just use a high-intensity guy like this. Like when you watch them play, they have a lot of skilled guys.
Yeah.
And Mobley, Jared Allen, they're great defensively, but if you think about their backcourt defense, it's not as strong because the only guy there is like Okoro. Like that's why he starts and plays so many minutes because his
Yeah.
how intensive he plays. So I think adding a wing like Jeremy Sohan or Tari Easton is going to help them a lot because Tari Easton has, I guess, upside on offense.
Yeah.
A bit, but he's reliable as a defender. He just has more upside on offense. But Jeremy Sohan has more upside as a, I guess, the Matt Barnes winning player type of guy. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's really pick your poison there. Whether they want to go more,
Yeah.
whether they want to go more for the dirty guy. I mean, the guy's going to get dirty now, or the guy that has more upside in the future. So.
Yeah,
See, that would
for
be
sure.
interesting. But and I know we were going to talk about late first and like tanking in fantasy, but man, just running through this mock, we went the 45 minutes. So I think we're probably going to end it there. maybe I'll do a quick rundown of like some of my comps that I have here.
Yeah,
So
why not?
yeah. So I guess starting from the top for Shet Homegrown, I had and guys don't kill me. This is just just quick quick. So Shet, I have like a KG Porzingis almost. You know what I'm
No, I see
saying?
that.
But like a blend of those two. I think he has the frame and similar skill set of Porzingis, but the heart of KG, if you ask me.
Yeah,
You know,
he's
so
super competitive. That's a big thing.
yeah. And then Jaden Ivey I had here. I almost saw like a Vince Carter / John Morant almost. Like a blend of those two guys.
Kind of saw De'Aaron Fox a little bit too, as another guy,
Okay.
which is
That makes
why I think
sense.
he'd be a terrible fit on the Kings. Actually,
That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, what led me to bring up Vince Carter is some of the shots he's taken. Just some of the wild
Mm,
shot he's takes. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
if you go back to Vince Carter versus Kobe days, like he was taking similar shots like that. So
yeah. No, he was definitely a tough shot maker. So yeah, I can see that too.
yeah. So Jabari Smith, I have like a Rashad Lewis / Tatum kind of
Yep.
blend for
Uh,
Jabari Smith.
yeah, somewhere in between. Like his swing skills, the handles. If he can develop a good handle, he'll be good. If not, he'll just kind of be a stationary shooter, or maybe like a movement shooter, but not a creator as much.
Oh, okay. And then
Yeah.
Paulo Banchero. This one's weird. I have three guys because I mean I think I watched him too much. I'm a Duke fan, so I have like a Carmelo / Blake / Zebo.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that's a good comp for him, and maybe with better passing than any of them is kind of the one thing, but
Yeah,
both
well,
of them,
I think that's where Blake kicks in the passing.
maybe. I think he's a better on-ball creator than Blake would ever was, though.
That's true. That's true. He's a better, but I think that's where the Carmelo and Blake kind of comes in. He has like
Yeah, he's just like archetype, like big wing. I think he's like the perfect big prospect in that sense, just because.
definitely. Who else? Okay, Shaden Sharp. I almost have like I see a lot of people comparing to Paul George. I mean, he might not have as much in him, so I kind of see a little Paul Pierce to kind of pull him down a little bit.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Keegan Murray. This one's interesting because he's going high, but the guys I comp him to might not be so highly revered. Which is, I almost see like his offense could be because the post up stuff he does in college. I don't know how well that'll translate. Maybe he'll have to rely more on the three. So I
Yeah,
almost see like his IQ stuff comes in with like a Josh Hart almost, but his offense might come in the form of like a Gary Harris where he's just spotting up shooting and just
yeah.
attacking closeouts.
I was
So
gonna say like a supercharged Michael Bridges is
okay,
kind of.
okay. So you're saying he has quite a long wingspan to a degree. He is
Uh,
big. He is
yeah,
big.
I think he has a pretty good wingspan. I'm not actually sure what his measurements are.
Okay. It's no biggie. It's no
But
biggie.
I
But
mean
he
more
does
as
have.
far as like same type of role though, where it's like
Okay.
can attack like closeouts and is a pretty good like driver finisher, can shoot and is going to be efficient, will make the right basketball play. I
Yeah.
think he kind of again it's the seamless fit thing, right?
Yep. And then so Benedict Matherin, he kind of comes across like almost like a Jerry Stackhouse almost. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think Jerry Stackhouse is tall, so I sprinkle a little Lonnie Walker in there.
No, I can see that. Just kind of like I can see him being like a kind of guy who plays out of control a little bit, which is gonna limit him. Maybe you can kind of see like weird Will Barton thrown in there too.
And I think the last guy that I haven't comped yet that we mentioned was Jeremy Sohan. But I did mention Matt Barnes with him, right? So I see him
Yeah.
like a Batum-ish Matt Barnes. So he has Matt Barnes with more upside on offense.
Yeah, I can see that. I think he's kind of I don't really know who I'd comp him to, but like he's definitely like just one of those like very switchy like big wings or like power forward types that I think he'll be good, but I just don't know what maybe his best case would be like a Shane Battier type.
hmm
I think I can see that like as like an apex outcome where he's like that kind of impact.
Okay.
But, and yeah, he gets the steals, he gets the rebounds, good finisher, good free throw rate. But, yeah,
Definitely.
he needs to develop the shot.
All right, bet. So I guess that's it. Do you have any closing remarks that you want to add on before we wrap this up?
Not really. I think we definitely need to like do another one of these where we start talking like I don't know later first round pick fits and tanking the fantasy. But it was good to just talk lotto and talk about these like prospects in that range especially since I got 4 lotto picks in our league.
Definitely. I mean, isn't that every season?
Last year I traded out, which I'm still regretting. I had a shot at Barnes and decided
That was wild.
I wasn't a believer at the time, and then I kind of came around later once I like scouted him more. So he was like someone who grew on me after we drafted, which I'm like, ah, shit.
Yeah, no, that's crazy that you drafted out of the best draft. That you traded out of the best draft in NBA history.
I mean, you saw what I did with all my picks, though. I ended up getting like Trey Man.
Yeah, you got value.
I said my second round was crazy. I got like Herb Jones and like Robinson Earl.
True that. That's true. You still had It's not like you had no picks. You still had those later picks.
Yeah, I just hit on all my second rounders, which I think is the
that's value getting.
Most improbable thing. Yeah, because like Jones, JRE, Grimes are all like guys who I think will have long careers. So I'm like, I mean, I traded out of the lotto, but like at least I got good value in the draft.
All right, for sure. I'll let you go now. Yeah, we're definitely gonna do this, but yeah, I'll say to wrap this up. This is opinions, not facts. Anything you disagree with, leave us a comment, send a message. Always willing to debate and see other perspectives. And like Ranger just said, next episode, we'll be talking more about some later first fits that we have. We'll be talking about tanking in fantasy because he is the tank master. You feel me? So with that being said, thank you for listening to the Kase Court Podcast. It's your boy Kase, the realest basketball fan alive. And I'm here with your boy Ranger, and we out.
I've been killing all these suckers where they at, man. Seeing through your cat, cause my vision is a CAT scan. Trying to get up in the game like I'm Pac-Man, so I'm blacking out on the track like I'm Batman. Call me captain, always gotta look for him. Beat so tight, I almost put a hook on it. Verse so far, I almost put a cook on it. Had this shit jumping, looking like I put a foot on it. Got 100 on the dash when I book Sonic. Only game that I play, got a rook on it. Got a flow so hard that it looks solid. Y'all be cynical, pitiful, read a book, college. Running the day with punting like Weezy, your baby stunting to Satan. I'm paying nothing to sofa like David Ruffin. All these niggas gossip about